inline hydraulic handbrakes versus stock handbrake versus having twin caliper setup. I've been drifting for nearly 10 years now, probably 8 or 9 years. Driven quite a few different people's cars, and something that I've noticed big time at the moment is that someone buys a cheap drift car, or they convert something like an E36 MX-5, and one of the first things they do is they put hydro handbrake in. Now, I'm not debating whether handbrakes are good or not. I think hydro is very useful, but I think the way it goes about isn't necessarily the right way. So a lot of people, they'll put a pipe from the mass cylinder to your hydraulic handbrake to the rear wheels, and then whenever you pull the handbrake, it locks. That's lovely, ideal, does the job. But what you're doing is, by doing that and putting the handbrake into the braking system, you're losing one of the things that you can do when you've got a stock handbrake or a twin caliper setup, and that is basically being able to use the foot brake and the handbrake pretty much at the same time. I'll give an example of this. So we've got a local drift track called Western Zoyland, and there's a corner where you come around and you come back on yourself, and say I'll be in third gear because I've got quite a tall rear diff ratio. I've got a 4.3, so I'll be up in the third gear, fly around the corner, and then you basically need to slow down. It's like a hairpin, and you need to basically slow down to a stop. Now, if you go around that corner and just literally, get to the point where you think, right, I need to let off now, and then just drag the handbrake, which if you have got an inline handbrake, this is what you'll have to probably do. You'll find that you'll be dragging the handbrake for so long that if you're not careful, you could spin out, or you won't maybe lose as much speed as you want and you'll go a bit wide. So what I like to do, which I noticed massively because I drove, earlier in the year, I drove a couple of friends' cars. One was an E36 BMW. And one was an S15. Thanks, stop guys, let me drive your cars, by the way. Now the S15, which is my friend Rich's, that's very similar to my car, probably slightly more power, but very similar. But he has got an inline handbrake rather than the twin caliper setup, which is what I've got. And I'll talk about the twin caliper setup in a minute. But basically, one of the things I noticed straight away, like nearly the first or second corner when I drove either car, we'll talk about the hairpin again. So you come around the big corner, whoa, 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 and then you want to slow down. Now, I will normally tap the foot brake to settle the whole car and slow it down by a few miles an hour, and then I'll yank the handbrake a couple of times, bang, bang. And then even sometimes I'll lightly touch the foot brake to slow the whole car down, and then I'll yank the handbrake as the foot brake's being applied to then pull the back around a bit more. Now this allows, you can be very you can be quite exact with your slowing down then. You can, if you start to slow down too much, you can then let the foot brake off. If you need more angle, you can then just pull the handbrake to give you more angle. Or if you don't need any more angle, you can press a bit more on the foot brake, the front will dive in. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but the problem is you can only do that if you've got your handbrake on a separate system to your foot brake. So I used to have, for the first 5 years of driving the car, I had the standard stock handbrake, which works on the rear calipers, but it's still separate. It is, to be fair, on a 14, it is pretty much part of the foot brake as well because it works on the same caliper. But you can just about get away with doing this. But basically, anyone who's got a car that has shoes or drums in the rear disc, so like an S13, a BMW, there's quite a few other cars that do this, you've basically got a completely separate handbrake from stock. So, you can do this. If you set up the handbrake good, a lot of people don't bother, but, you can get an S13 to lock its wheels on the drums, on the shoes inside the disc quite easily. By taking that off and putting an inline hydraulic handbrake in, you're actually making it worse. You're not making it any better. You might think I'm wrong, and if you do think that, write in the comments. I'm interested to hear what other people think. Going back to the twin caliper, which is what I said we're just talking about as well, that is basically the best scenario. So I've got a one-off system on mine. Me and my friend Dave, we talked about it for ages, and then between us, we made it. Unfortunately, he sold his car before we got a chance to fit on his, but I've had it on mine now for a couple of years, and it works it works amazing. Like the handbrake locks is definitely the best setup I've been in, I think, pretty much for, you know, twin calipers. And a lot of BMWs and stuff, you can buy twin caliper brackets and put a second caliper on. It's really not that expensive. The only con, which, you know, there's always cons to these things, is that you've obviously got the extra weight and the extra pipe work, but it really is negligible. I mean, you're probably talking an extra, I don't know, 5 kilos or something, you know, which really, to be able to have a handbrake that locks every time and be able to use your foot brake at the same time. So this is the big thing. So for me, we'll go back to what I was talking about at the beginning. Right, so I quickly wanted to show you my setup. So on the back of here, look, I don't know where you can see that. That's your standard caliper on the right, this one here. And this car's been used for a while, so the discs are a bit rusty. And then this is my other twin caliper. Now this is a one-off setup. You don't necessarily have to use this. You can buy, there's loads of other ones like GK Tech and other stuff, but yeah, you know, that works an absolute treat. And if you look inside here, you see I've moved the standard handbrake over to the left. So that handbrake was here before, but I've still got that. And then this here then is the separate handbrake. And you can see when I pull that, you know, I'm pulling this here, it obviously doesn't affect the foot brake because it's not in the same line. And you can see now the brake lines, they come back to a T-piece there and they run through the quarter. Back to some flexies, which if I go underneath, I can show you the flexies. And then there's a pair of flexies just here. And then yeah, that's that really. With a hydro, you'd have to fully press the handbrake, you know, lock up. But I say I normally do it the other way around. I normally touch the brake beforehand and then yank the handbrake, and it doesn't work because you're already pressing on the, you know, in the car, if you've got your hydraulic handbrake sat here like this, you know, you go to press the foot brake and that moves, you literally see it, it pulls and your foot brake moves like that. That's because it's all in the same line. So yeah, what I'm saying is basically, if you've got your first drift car or, you know, you're just got into drifting, it is worth, if you can, to set up your standard handbrake if it's shoes and discs and you can do it, or if not, buy a cheap twin caliper setup. And I guarantee you, after a while, if you went back to driving without a twin caliper setup or without being able to use that, you will notice it. It is definitely noticeable that the handbrake, that, you know, using the foot brake and the handbrake is an important tool, I think, in drifting. So let me know what you think. If the video helped you in any way, give it a like and, you know, feel free to subscribe.